Okay, Paul. She said go. Yep.
Okay, we're going to convene the March 28th, 2013 meeting of the Sherborn Board of Selectmen. I regret that Tom Twining is ill and not able to attend. So that leaves Peter and I. The agenda is as follows. We start with reading the agenda at 6:05, public comment, 6:30, town administrator report, which would include consideration of acceptance of gift to the town. At 6:40, we are going to discuss ballot questions and possible votes to put those on the ballot for the annual town election. At 7:10, the Energy Committee is coming in to review Solarized Massachusetts program. At 7:25, we'll consider a proclamation related to the Daffodil Trail Committee. At 7:35, we have consideration and approval of Board of Selectmen minutes, of which there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. At 7:45, we have review and support consideration of 2013 annual town meeting warrant articles. And at 8:15, consideration of approval of the payroll and treasury warrant number 39. That was our posted agenda. There, because Tom Twining is not here, there's been a request to drop from the agenda the review and support consideration of the 2013 annual town meeting warrant articles. Those aren't time sensitive and they can wait till we have a full board. Is there anything else that we should take off or add?
I don't think so, Paul. Just on that one we're taking off, I would like to just set the stage, not to have any real consideration, but just mention a couple of things about what might the next steps be given what's happened with Article 23, and if we could just have a placeholder to have that brief discussion for food for thought for the when we do have this full section here, if that's possible.
Food for thought, the perfect way to phrase it for a hungry.
There you go. The only thing I think we've got I don't think we'll need all this time we have here at this stage of the game, but we'll play that by ear, I imagine. So I would move to accept the agenda as you read it, and
I want to add one item under future agenda items.
Great.
Which we don't have on the agenda now, but I want to discuss setting up the process for remote participation.
Okay.
So that Tom Twining can participate in meetings even when he's ill.
Sounds like a great idea.
So,
I move that we accept the agenda as amended.
second. All in favor? All right. So we get to public comment. Don't all rush to the microphone. Seeing
Well,
no public comment,
It was easy.
we will jump ahead to the town administrator's report.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
We should have a tape with drum rolls and other appropriate music so that we can play during our meetings.
I'll bring a little snare drum in. I can do that. For the TA report tonight, I wanted to start with, this is a request we received to accept a town gift. It's from Robert DeRamo to honor his recently deceased father, who apparently did a lot of stonework around town, and he had done some stonework for the town. They'd like to donate a granite bench, which they would take care of the installation, and the committee for the west extension of the campus here agree, or would like to place it on that property. And he would take care of the installation of it, and we wouldn't be bound that that's the location for all of posterity, but that's where we would put it now. So I just wanted to recommend accepting that gift and have the board officially vote on it.
I think that's a great gift to be provided by the Daramos here, and we donated a bench years ago, my family, to a little club we belong to in Situate,
Okay.
and I take great joy seeing people sitting on that bench, you know, in memory of a loved one, so I think that's a terrific gift.
I'm so sorry for the loss of Robert Duramo's father. He was quite a guy.
Yeah.
Would you move to?
I move to accept the gift.
I second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Okay. So, as you know, the budget and town meeting warrant has occupied some time over the last week for all of us involved. I met with the library director and toured the library, went over the plans for the new library. That all seemed pretty exciting. And handled another grievance in a department. I met with the Elder Housing Committee to discuss a few issues that they had concerns about. And I had a couple of housekeeping issues to bring to you. One was for sunrise service approval for the Pilgrim Church. It's the annual request. They apparently have a ceremonial fire there, and the fire chief has approved it. He's okay with it, has no concerns, and the church has requested your approval for doing that.
This is something we've done every year for many years.
So moved.
Second.
Okay.
All in favor?
Great, thank you. Also, we have a retiring veterans agent. I don't know if the board knew that yet. That was Bob Ambrose.
Yes.
So that retirement is effective April 15th. And the person that we would like to bring back to the board for an appointment would be Doug Brody. And I didn't know if you normally would vote on that tonight and we bring the paperwork to you another night to sign, or if you wait and we bring the paperwork and the candidate into you at the same time.
This is an appointment that should be made in April because that's when it's up.
Okay.
But for myself, I want to thank Bob Ambrose for his service to the community. He cared, and that's a wonderful thing. I also am delighted that Doug Brody is willing to step forward and to fulfill that function. But we do that appointment every April.
Okay, so we'll bring it back at the April meeting.
Great.
With all the documents in place and have him here to say hello.
Terrific.
Well,
Okay.
we all know he doesn't need to.
Great, okay. We won't
He's
take his
welcome.
time up that way.
He's welcome to come. He doesn't need to come.
But that's terrific that he's stepping up to the plate on that.
Last thing is, Barbara St. Andre had put together motions for the regional school department. And, have we distributed those, Diane? Okay. She sent those over as confidential.
I don't think I got those. Okay, I didn't know what that was. So I haven't seen these, but I'll,
But these are votes that need to be
No.
voted at town meeting.
The school department made some requests, sent over some proposed motions. We sent them to town council, and it's in Barbara St. Andre's email that, that Peter's looking at, that are the two revised motions. Yeah, that's it. So that's what she's proposing to meet for the motions. But I want to send it back to the school department, but it's marked as confidential, so that would require a board vote for me to release it back to the school department.
But also, under state law, we have 60 days, the town has 60 days to vote on this, and these have the old date of March 5.
Okay.
And at the
Right.
hearing, I had asked the superintendent of schools and the school committee if they would revote these with a later date that would provide
Yeah.
enough time so we can have our annual town meeting
Yeah, and they
and our
confirm.
ballot question. They said they would do that.
Right.
So the dates on these motions are wrong.
Okay.
They need to have new, fresh dates. And these are the votes that town meeting would be voting, not the board. But certainly we
Right.
need to allow them to go to the region.
Right.
Yes.
So
I would move that we release these confidential documents to the region.
Okay.
second,
Okay.
all in favor?
So when I forward the email to them, I will note that they need to update the date with the new.
Yeah, they have to
Their new
rescind
vote date.
their March 5th vote
Right.
and revote it.
Okay.
Hopefully assessing Dover everything and Sherborn nothing.
We'll work on that formula. And that's all I had under the TA report. Thank you.
All right, next is consideration of ballot questions. And here, just to explain to our viewers, advisory has voted favorable action on a number of expenditures that they recommend be subject to a debt exclusion ballot question. And it has been the custom and practice of prior boards and my own personal custom and practice to accommodate the requests of advisory and their recommendations so that they can be on the ballot. If town meeting acts to defeat any of these proposals, the ballot question becomes moot. But they have to be put on the ballot 35 days before the election, so we can't wait to find out. We don't have the time to wait to find out how the voters will vote at town meeting. So we have to put them on now. This is our last meeting before the deadline. So we have to put requests on now. And these are advisory requests. These are not the selectman or the town administrator sitting in a vacuum trying to figure out, let's put ballot questions on. This is the result of the votes of advisory on last Saturday and last Tuesday. Beyond the questions of that are listed here, we have the right to put non-binding public opinion referenda questions on. And in different communities, you see different questions. You know, should the town oppose unmanned drones flying over the town? Things like that. You see, we have the right to putting those questions on. I haven't heard of any requests from anybody to put any of those questions on.
We've not received any requests.
And did Tom have any ideas about any non-binding questions?
I can check in. I haven't checked on that specifically with him.
I have no non-binding. I do have two questions on two of these, or questions on two of these. One is on the second page. It's relates to the public safety communications equipment. And my understanding was a portion of that was to be funded with free cash. The free cash portion wouldn't be a ballot type of item, so I presume the way this is worded would still be fine. But I just wanted to point that out, that question mark.
No. The answer is no.
The answer is no?
The ballot question tracks what happens at town meeting, so if town meeting votes whatever amount town meeting votes to be borrowed,
Yes,
that's what this question picks up. There's no amount in these questions.
right, right. So, again, because we expect some piece will be free cash. The piece that's not free cash would still be subject, and just fine the way this is worded, I guess, is, I think, what your explanation also gives me. The next one, Paul, is on the Pine Hill School Emergency Access Road. The ask for that, and I was the proponent, includes no design and engineering. It is just go do it. So I had mentioned to Barbara consideration of striking the phrase including design engineering costs related there too. So we just put a period after Pine Hill School.
Okay.
Otherwise, I had nothing further on these. They look fine. It's a complete list.
Well, my issue is, I don't agree with the format of going with 3 pages of questions to the voters. I think they should be combined. So, for example, just to throw ideas out, we have 2 questions from the regional schools about various items. I'd make that into 1 question. We have 3 pieces of equipment for the fire department, each of which is a separate question. I put all of those into 1 question. Should the town of Sherborn be allowed to exempt from the provisions of Prop 2.5 the amounts required to pay for the bond issued in order to purchase and install a command vehicle, a new computer, and a new HVAC system and energy efficient improvements at Fire Station 1. Before I go through all of these, the point of all that is that some of these items are pretty small. I think one of them was like $9,000 or $10,000.
There's one that's 5,500 and there's one that's 10. That's correct.
And to go to the voters with 3 pages of this, I mean, the reality is that people are going. If I had a kid in the middle school and I wanted air conditioning, I'd go there and I'd vote for that 1 question and I'd leave, and I wouldn't vote on any of the other questions. So many towns would take all of these questions and put them into 1 question. So if you wanted the air conditioning, you had to vote for the
other
items.
Yeah.
They're all in there together. And given the fact that a lot of these are really small, I mean, how trivial do we get with the voters?
But we are at town meeting voting on each individually.
Yes.
Correct? And we have to get the 2/3 approval to make these not moot,
Yes.
if they're individual. So let's say, I guess by the way you're describing it would still work, but let's say that the air conditioning at the region passed 2/3 at town meeting, but the other piece of it did not. The wording would still stand, is what you're describing.
Right, the piece that passed,
Yeah.
if the override passes, only attaches to that piece.
Versus giving the voters who aren't at town meeting the opportunity to make their vote on an, I would call a la carte basis, each individual item, which before you raise this, it made a lot of sense to me. Now you've got me thinking in a different manner.
Well, there's 2 reasons not to do that. I mean, I agree on big ticket items. If we were looking for, build the library and was, I don't want to put a scary number out there, but just with a lot of zeros in it, and
Yeah.
we were going to, build improvement to Pine Hill if they had gone with the 1.3 number. Those are things that really ought to be separate. They're big ticket items. But when you're talking about little pieces that essentially, when put together, make 1 deck of cards, you really, if there's somebody who's opposed to, it's not that people are opposed. Most of the people are just going to blank this stuff.
Well, let's just be practical. It looks like there's there's the school ones that could be combined, there's the fire department ones that could be combined, there's CM&D that could be combined. And I don't know what else there is. The Pine Hill ones, I guess. And then you've got the traffic safety ones. And I know, take for example, the region questions. It's been a lot of back and forth with the region on those. I'd hate to do something that we haven't had input on from them as far as how this goes on the ballot. CM&D, we can decide how to do that quite easily. Likewise, the fire department. I don't know about Pine Hill, if we can put those together.
Which are the Pine Hill ones?
Well, one, emergency access road, and then they have their larger piece, which are the capital improvements and equipment.
Oh, I put those together in a heartbeat.
Right, but my point is, we haven't heard from the Pine Hill folks to do that, that's all. So I'm still trying to figure out what's the right thing to do here, given lack of input from the proponents themselves. Particularly the region is the one that bothers me the most, keeping that, doing something with that.
But I understand that, but the rest, the way Prop 2.5 is set up, it's intended to discourage it to happen. You need a 2/3 vote of this
Yes.
board. It's our call.
Right. And we have to make it tonight, right?
And we have to make it tonight. I just don't think small numbers, do we have the town meeting warrant? Let's just see what numbers we're
Well,
looking
the only ones that are small numbers, the server is 5,500, and the crossing signal is 10. But I would argue that, let's say we wanted to combine the crossing signal as a traffic safety item with the other traffic safety item. My sense, at least from what I heard at the advisory hearings, that there was no concern over the traffic safety issue, but there were concerns over the other traffic safety study that was being proposed. So,
But that's why you combine the questions. I mean, just start off with the assumption if you put all of these items into one question,
right,
then instead of people being pitted against each other, you have everybody working to get all the questions passed. But if you divide them all up, and all you care about is getting air conditioning for your kid,
well,
you'll tell everybody, go vote for that.
well, I'll go back to the traffic safety. I would hate to see people voting against it because they are not in favor of one, and we miss out on this sign and the grant as an
But the
example. And that's
traffic-
just an example, and it isn't to suggest that that's the likely outcome by any means. I'm just
I
using-
would take the solar activated pedestrian crossing light, combine it with the asphalt overlay, with the communications committee equipment, with the Woodhaven, and put all those items into one question.
I just have a question. Did advisory say that they wouldn't possibly use free cash for those smaller items? So
They
if-
said no. I asked that question twice.
And they won't use
They were
for
saying
the-
they were gonna put them all as capital items, yeah. Now, that doesn't mean they might not change their minds, but,
So I'd combine those four items together.
so you're saying, which ones again, Paul, on that? You're saying the traffic signal,
The traffic signal,
yeah,
the asphalt overlay,
which is,
number 7,
yeah,
the communications equipment,
yeah,
and the,
emergency access road, no?
oh, we could do that. That could be a good place for it. And the traffic safety intersection.
The intersection,
Yeah, put all those together in one question.
and how would you word that question?
It's pretty easy. forget I do this for a living.
No, I don't forget that, that's why I asked.
All of this is statutory language. Shall the town of Sherborn be allowed to exempt from the provisions of Proposition 2.5, so-called, the amount required to pay for the bond issued in order to. That's all statutory.
Yeah,
Prop 2.5 says that's what you have to say. And then what you have to do is put in what is the rest, and Barbara's written the rest for each of the items. So purchase public safety communications equipment.
so you just list them out, as she's listed them, you just group them all together.
Put them all together.
That list would combine down to 4 questions.
Well, he wants to keep the 2 regional school
I think we should keep the regional ones separate, just
No,
out of
I'm just
courtesy.
saying 1 through 11, those 11 capital items would collapse down to 4 questions, and then you would have the 2 schools questions, so you'd have 6 total.
Okay, and that's a lot of questions.
Right, right.
Remember, the criticism from Collins and DOR is that we have this obsession with long ballots here. We like to vote for everything. And to some extent, don't we have a duty to kind of move the community towards
Right.
looking at the community as a community? And if you ask the voters, you know, are you gonna give the fire department $5,000, and they come in there and they say, well, gee, if I give the schools $300,000, I'm gonna vote against the 5,000 because I feel like I've spent too much money over here, so why do they need a computer anyway? All you're doing is fostering this look of the town as being all these little separate things, and instead, we're in this together.
Right.
The Pine Hill needs this stuff, but the fire department needs the computer.
Right.
Are they being bonded separately or all together?
They'll be bonded all together anyway.
Right, haven't we in the past you're gonna pass it at town meeting anyway, or fail on the individual ones, could you put it all into one?
So if you have
Everything into one question, whichever
Yes.
passed at town meeting is all into one question.
Yeah, can you borrow this, are you gonna authorize us to borrow
so how does that work?
for
So
all
let's
these
say
purposes?
let's say my favorite one, the Pine Hill Access, Emergency Access Road, fails at town meeting. But it's in the list of half dozen, 5 items that were put in here. Then what happens?
Well, you've voted to make it exempt, but there was nothing to exempt because it wasn't passed at town meeting.
Right.
So
Okay.
there'd be no impact.
Only need one.
Yeah, but the problem is that most people who come to vote don't go to town meetings, so they might not be aware of it.
But that's why you really wanna group it. There's also sort of a hidden motive here, which is, when you group things, they tend to pass.
I
When you
understand.
separate them, they have a much harder time. And that's because you have all these special interests that come for their question. The fire department comes and they vote for the fire department. And they may not care about the schools, but and maybe they do. I don't want the phone ringing and the fire department to come in here and say, we care about the schools. But what human nature is, the parts that they need, they're gonna come and they're gonna vote for, and a lot of the voters are gonna go home. Or they're gonna say, hey, we can't afford everything, so we wanna take care of the fire department, we'll vote no on everything else. But when it's all together, it makes you think globally, if you will.
No, I understand that, but I'm still trying to get to where you want to get to here. So I wonder if there's a compromise, and that is, based on a threshold. We keep the ones that are $100,000 above, to throw out a number, as separate, and we group others that are below that threshold. Achieve some of what you're talking about, but, for example, I look at the communications, the public safety communications equipment, that's more than $100,000 item. It's also an item that's near and dear to a lot of people's hearts, including yours. I was at the meeting last night with the Planning and Zoning Board to sit in, and the approvals didn't come easily. They got to go another round of meetings and so forth, and come back with more information. But I know that the communications committee and you and a whole bunch of other people worked real hard on that one, And it seems that it, standing alone gives it a greater opportunity to win, but maybe that's my,
I think the opposite.
Misinterpretation.
I think the average voter will come in and say, why do they need to communicate? I'd rather take care of my kid at the school. I'm gonna vote for that. I'm gonna vote against the communications thing.
yeah,
And then if we lose that, it's gonna cost us much more, because we're gonna have to get our own crane, we're gonna have to put this thing up there.
well, I understand.
It's a nightmare.
What about putting the CM&D with the fire department?
That, I had thought about that and was actually gonna propose it, because they're all
Vehicle.
Equipment stuff.
equipment, so it'd be like equipment override.
So if you did that, you would have moved 13 questions down to 5 questions. The only 3 items that would have their own question would be the Pine Hill School capital needs, and then Article 9 and 10 on the regional.
And then you're grouping everything else.
Everything else would be grouped into 2 questions.
Yeah, I think leaving the communications all by
As a
itself
standalone, yeah,
is asking for trouble.
yeah,
We had, like 2 years ago, before you were on the board, we had this mandate to obtain money for meeting our obligations to the United States on our national pollution elimination discharge permits. And so that was a separate question. And people looked at that and said, we don't really understand what this is. It lost.
yeah.
Like the one question that was absolutely mandatory and we had to do, that's the one that lost. And it lost because it didn't have a constituency out there. The schools have a constituency. They'll come and they'll vote. The fire department has a constituency. They'll come and they'll vote. But a communications tower?
Let's go through the groupings here, David, just read me your groupings, so you
So
would group.
question 1
Yeah,
would be number 1, fire department command vehicle. Number 2, fire department computer server.
yeah,
Number 3, fire department HVAC.
yeah,
Number 5, CM&D dump truck.
yeah,
Number 6, CM&D pickup truck.
okay,
The next question would be number 4, Board of Selectmen solar pedestrian activated crossing light.
yeah,
Number 7, recycling committee asphalt overlay.
yeah,
8, communications committee communication equipment.
yeah. And
9, Board of Selectmen Pine Hill emergency access road.
yeah, and 11,
traffic safety
and the
engineering. and
standalones would be
reconstruction.
the capital needs Pine Hill and the 2 region ones.
Pine Hill's capital, and then
And in your view, you think that makes good sense? Good logical
yeah, I think we
grouping as
moved
well?
13 down to
5,
5 articles, and the schools are on their separate standalones.
okay.
I think that's good.
Okay, does that work for you, Paul? I guess I
Well,
get your take.
Pat has been suggesting, so maybe you should speak for yourself for a minute, that there really just should be one question. We
Yeah,
did that like
a
10
couple
years
of
ago.
we did a thing where we passed it at town meeting, and it failed at the ballot box because it was separated, and people didn't understand the reasoning. You fight your battle at town meeting. Everybody who comes has the, you can't do anything if it doesn't pass at town meeting. So everything under one question is 8. This is all that we passed at town meeting. One question, yes or no? I mean, you need that second approval.
Well, that's why a
And
lot
it,
of communities do.
and it works much better because the people that come to the ballot box don't always understand and haven't been through the whole thing, and they have, like you say, a preference one way or another, but you pass it at one place, you should just, say, look, do you want it all, or
So the small capital items on Articles 1 through 11 would be under one article. I mean, one vote, and then Article 9 would be a vote, and Article 10 would be a vote. So you'd have 3 questions.
Well, that's what Pat's suggesting. Oh, she's actually saying, I think, put the schools all together too. But Peter's,
well, I mean, you can break it that way if you want.
No, I appreciate what Pat, Yeah, I appreciate what Pat's saying. I think
you know?
what David suggested is probably a modest, happy medium here, if you will. I'd hate to get too much together. I think it's still important. When I go to the ballot box, I like to know what I'm voting for, not a whole bunch of stuff. So, personally, I prefer the, the à la carte versus the one size fits all. But I get what you're saying. I think the groupings that David suggested, and I want to support David in the things he's trying to do. So that's part of it as well.
You can put it on me.
and you, Paul, of course.
Well, the one little tweak here, I wonder, is whether the Pine Hill Road should go with Pine Hill, or whether it should stay with all the transportation stuff we're doing.
For
Yeah.
one, I tend to think that Articles 9 and 10 should be separate and identified.
No,
There.
he's talking about items 9 and 10.
And items,
9 and 10.
The Pine
Pine
Hill
Hill.
Emergency Access
Road.
Road and the capital needs for Pine Hill School.
Yeah, I think that's a good grouping, Paul.
to put those two together.
Yeah.
Oh, here comes the objection. Well, this is a democracy,
Well,
so, yes.
Actually, speaking for myself, because we haven't really spoken of this at all,
I
but
understand.
the whole process for getting the capital needs for the school was entirely different than the road. And we're looking at a long-term thing, and I just wonder whether people are looking, because you talked about the size of the number, that number would be bigger, and people would say, geez, it's gonna be this number every year type of thing, so. If it was all together, I could see that, but if it's in the groupings, I'm not sure that.
So you wouldn't mind the Pine Hill, just you speaking personally, your gut tells you that the Pine Hill School Building Committee capital needs grouped with all the other 10 other items in that box on the warrant here, if you will, makes some sense to you, more sense to you than putting the access road, the emergency access road with the capital needs.
Yes.
Huh.
Frank, in these ballot questions, there's no amount stated. It refers back to whatever amount was voted at town meeting. So none of the ballot questions will have 300,000.
400, right.
Right, there won't be any number at all. And when the way it works legally, if that question passes, then you go back to see what was voted at town meeting, and if the road was defeated and is 0, and someone upped yours to $1.3 million, it's the $1.3 million that counts, whatever was voted at town meeting. No number at all here.
What has the town typically done in these things?
We've done both. I've been on the board where we voted one question for everything, and I've been on the board where we've done multiple questions, and I've been on the board when we voted
Some groupings, yeah.
these menu questions.
So why don't you just tie it to the article and have 3 questions? Article 8, 9, and 10. Each question on the ballot is an exempt for all the items under Article 8. Article 9, Article 10. It's just 3 separate questions.
I'm good. with
My
that.
fear is on Article 9 and 10 is if we combined them, voted to combine them all tonight, and then found out later for some reason that the school had some
Yeah, I don't wanna do
interest
that.
they had to be
I don't wanna
separate.
go there, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think Peter's correct in that.
So you're.
So what do you think about that? I mean, it takes two unanimous.
It's 2 of us, yeah, it's gotta be
So-
unanimous, I
All
understand.
I can do is, again, I'm concerned that some of these projects, like $5,000 for the fire department, you put a separate ballot question for that, and somebody walks in
No,
there.
I agree. It's just a question of which ones, if any, stand alone of those 11. Or if those 11 get broken up into 2 or 3 groupings.
That's, I will, I
You would
think
go to
we're,
the groupings or the full vote, but you prefer the
Right.
full vote. is what
I
I'm
think I
reading.
prefer the full vote because they're all small items. And I want to encourage the community to think one community. It's not really the fire department over here and CMD over here and the communications group over here and Pine Hill over there. We rise and fall together.
Oh, I hear
And
you.
it's not that you know, the emergency access road is more important than the Pine Hill capital needs. So if I have only, if I'm thinking I don't want to spend any money, but I'll do one.
Yeah.
Which one am I going to do? And I come in and I decide I'm going to vote for this. I mean, these could all go down to defeat individually.
I understand.
But if they're all together, then it makes us look like we got to look at the community as a whole. These are the things that we've worked hard all year, and advisory has worked hard all year, and a lot of fine minds have worked hard in our departments and our schools to come up with what are the needs of the community for the upcoming year. And this is one community.
Right.
It's rather than competing. And as I say, I think something that's the most, to me, the most essential item on here is the communications committee. Because if we don't get that up, then
Right.
we're going to spend a lot more and so on. But how many people are out there thinking, well, I'd rather have better cell phone than to have my kid taken care of at Pine Hill School? There isn't the constituency for better cell phone, but there is for taking care of my kid
So each lives or dies at town meeting.
on
And
their
then
own.
all of them live or die at the ballot box. And my favorite municipal town administrator likes the full grouping over 2 or 3 breakuts. I'm just, you know, pound the table. Which is your favorite approach?
My favorite is just to tie them. There's an exemption question for Article 8, an
Okay.
exemption question for
I
Article
want
9,
that.
and an exemption question for Article 10.
Okay, all right. I could go there. I see the merits that you're describing, yep. So I'm okay with that.
So I move to adopt the recommendation of the town administrator.
I second that.
Any discussion? Complaints, objections?
We'll see,
Has your shot at it.
we'll see.
Snooze or lose.
Well, the thing I learned about being a selectman is that no good deed goes unpunished, and somebody will come forward and say, this was my favorite project, and why did you group it in with projects I don't like?
I'm just gonna say, Paul said it was the right thing to do. And David, I was there to support David, and I'm just a new guy. What do I know?
We could break each one out as a bullet point as opposed to writing it narrative way if you wanted to.
That's presentation, but it's all in there. It's just that hopefully somebody doesn't vote against the whole smash, as Paul was describing, for one particular item.
Well, there will be people who will do that.
Yes, none of these things pass unanimously.
The
Right.
point is that you've passed it or failed it at town meeting, and this is just. to
How you
have
pay
on-
for it.
It's just-
And I think that's the key point, is really, it's a
Right, it's just.
question of financing,
It's finance.
ultimately.
Just for my own information, how much are all these ballot questions costing the community?
I'd have to do 300, 4, 5, 6,
A little over $1 million?
Like 1.5 million for the
Eight.
school.
With the schools.
8, yeah, 7 or 8.
It's like
without the schools.
800,000 for the article.
Yeah, but the air conditioning is half of it, right?
That's
We pay
450.
for half,
Yeah, it's 450 or something,
so
470.
it's like $500,000 for the capital and the school, and then 7 something, wasn't it?
Yeah,
So if town meeting says we want all these projects, do we have any sense of what it'll do to the tax rate?
It could go up.
we don't.
Not necessarily. I would have to look at what's coming off the debt service.
Yeah, so that's
Debt
information that
service
we'd
is on
certainly
this.
want to be sure is, advisory would presumably have that information for each of the items, as well as I would recommend they have as we've grouped them on the ballot. So that's word we can get to our friends on advisory to include that in their report so the voters know what the cost is.
I also know Pete tries to schedule them out as much as he can.
Right. He may have some
That's
different tweaking
retirement.
depending on the lifespans and so forth, how he finances those.
Well, quick and dirty though, I'm thinking if it's $1.8 million over 30 years, just divided 30 into $1.8 million, that's like 60,000 a year. Then you add in interest, it's 90,000, so you're probably in the 70 to 100,000 a year for all of this. Divided by 1,400 houses, so that's too hard arithmetic for a
Yeah, me
simple
too,
lawyer
so-
like me. 14 into 100.
It's,
And it
it adds
depends
up.
if you live in the low rent district or the high rent district.
That's right. All right.
So motion's been made and seconded, all in favor? So you'll prepare the paperwork and get it to the town clerk on time, even though it's Friday, town clerk's
Yeah.
not open tomorrow?
Correct. Correct.
She has to have it 35 days before the election or we're out.
So that's sometime middle of next week, right?
Election's the 14th, that time.
Okay.
All right.
Brings
That
us to
Not as easy as I thought it was gonna be.
the Energy Committee. Oh, and that vote was with taking out the design and engineering for Pine Hill.
Yes.
You mentioned that, but
modified that,
we didn't
yeah.
actually vote it, but just to make it
That's all.
clear, so that we
Clear.
don't, I move that,
I second.
that the engineering and the design for Pine Hill Road comes out.
I second.
All in favor? Okay, so you've got formal votes on everything. That brings us to the Energy Committee. Do you care to come up to our interrogation booth?
Spotlight.
We turn on the bright
Spotlight.
lights.
Well, that's comforting. Now I'm not nervous. I think we've met before. I'm Jane.
Yes, Jane.
Jane Fush. I'm at 76 Old Orchard Road. And yeah, I'm on the Energy Committee. Just wanted to give you guys a heads up on one area that we've been looking at working on in our committee and just in our town is a program we applied for in January. It's the Solarize Mass program, and it's in its third iteration. Basically, it's it's been launched a couple of times. It's gone through about 21 towns so far, and it's been quite successful. It's launched by the Clean Energy
Center. Yeah.
Center and the DOER. The program is to bring together the community in having small solar installations, 5 kilowatts or under, on residential property. So basically it's to encourage homeowners and businesses to put solar panels on their roofs, preferably, but also a ground mount is okay too. So we put in the application in January to be part of this program, and this program would allow us to have a one installer be designated just for Sherborn, and the pricing of it would be advantageous in that as more houses come on and do installations, the price per kilowatt goes down. So once you reach a benchmark of about 25 houses, you go from the first tier pricing to second tier pricing. So you are supposed to see your electric bill go down the more people in the community jump on board with it. The tax incentives are also pretty good, as far as the federal government giving a 30% rebate or tax incentive for solar panels up until 2016, so we still have a few years left there. And the CEC is giving about $2,000, which is the same as the Commonwealth Solar Program. So it's just coming from a different pocket, basically, to encourage homeowners to to go with the 5 kilowatt or less project on their houses. So what does this mean? We applied for it. We were supposed to have heard by now. We haven't, but we expect to in the next week or so. And when we do, we'll get a letter of approval, which we'll need you to sign and be on board with. And basically it says that the town's willing to go along with this project happening with its residents, that we would put a link on our town website to the Clean Energy Center, that sort of thing. So I just wanted to give you a heads up on it. We also have a plan B if we don't get approved, which I'll explain in a second. But do we have any questions so far?
No, I want to say that I'm 100% support of this. I'm 100% support of solar power. I've been advocating this without this program for 6 years. I think every home in Sherborn should have this solar capability. I think every municipal building ought to have some solar panels put on it, no matter how small. The reason for that is that it's part of the Patrick Murray's administration's goals to reduce our energy dependence upon foreign sources. My offices are in downtown Boston, and I watch these tankers come in that are almost underwater. They're almost like submarines when they come in. And then when you see them 2 days later coming out of the inner harbor, they're 10 stories tall, empty. It's incredible the amount of energy that's imported into Massachusetts. And the more that we can do to get ourselves free of the Middle East and Iraq and all of the mess that goes with fighting for oil around the world, the better off we are as a country. Solar power is also better environmentally, because when you burn oil and you burn natural gas, you have byproducts, but solar is free. The problem with solar is that unfortunately the panels can't get snow on them. And then we have things called night, and then we have leaves that fall on them in the fall, and all this kind of stuff. But some is better than none, and nothing in life is ever perfect. This is a good step forward. So I'm 100% behind it, and want to do anything I can to support it, and to support you'll be the coach, I hope.
Yes,
for the
I would
town.
be I would be the solar coach for Sherborn.
So I'm 100% behind our coach.
Could I ask the coach a couple of questions?
Sure.
Just because when I get something, I read it.
Yes.
So
oh,
this
thank
Appendix C is an agreement with the CEC. I've been to conferences that they do. It's a great organization, so it's the right folks to get affiliated with. But
Oh.
so you're the like this contract, if you will, says so all sorts of things have to happen, and I wrote in, well, who does that? Who does that? Who does that? And I guess that's you, in essence, that does most, if not all of it. I mean, there's some tracking of activity, accounting and whatnot that I guess the town would do in some fashion. So who signs this agreement? Is that for our favorite town administrator? So these are questions I would give to him to just clarify that we're doing it right,
Right.
if you follow me. But before
I'd have to. Yeah. Like I don't know which sections you're talking about in the contract.
and I don't want to get into the nitty gritty of that. It's just that
Okay.
I have a lot of who does this and who does
Okay.
that, okay? And I have, one question is, doing this lock people into having to only deal with the vendor that CEC has in the town of Sherborn? So if the town of Sherborn signs this, am I limited to only the CEC vendor of choice to put up solar panels on my house? Is a question that I have. You may not have the answer.
I do. The short answer is yes.
Oh,
But there are, of course, ways out. Yes, if you want to be part of the tiered pricing.
Okay,
If you want to be part of the program where you get the 30% rebate for the
Feds,
tax, and
yeah.
then the couple of
$2,000
thousand for, and to get on to be inside the grouped tier
okay.
pricing, then you need to use the same installer. Now, let me help you feel a little bit better about the installer being chosen. The CEC is going to vet, they're taking applications, they put out an RFP to the installers that went out recently, and they'll have a panel of them, and the CEC will narrow it down to about 8 installers. Our group will look at the installers chosen. We'll choose 3 that we think would be a good fit for Sherborn. And then there's an interview day where members of our committee, Gino
Sure.
probably, me, Michael Lesser, John Higley, will go and interview the 3 top that we've chosen for our town. And that combination, we will decide who would be best for Sherborn based on what they're offering for installation costs, tier pricing, and other things that they can offer. Some companies offer weatherization and other things besides just solar panels.
Yeah,
So we just
yeah.
try to get the best combination that we think for Sherborn. And the reason for that is so that it takes some of the work out of, some of the legwork out of finding someone for the customer. So
I
basically,
understand.
we're just,
But if my brother-in-law was in the business, I
Yeah.
could still choose him, I just wouldn't be within the tier
Oh,
group
exactly.
pricing. Okay,
Right,
that,
yep.
that's really all I want to get.
Yep.
There's a couple of clauses in here, besides the who's, I see a couple of clauses in here that talks about what I call as intellectual property types of clauses, where we're basically make available without charge all non-com, blah, 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 all plans and analyses. So we're, not that there's any IP or intellectual property worth protecting, but I wonder. So that type of thing jumps out at me a little bit. The other one that jumps out at me a little bit is it says we would provide all leads and contacts and email addresses. So there's some privacy disclosure types of things, all of which he would deal with. The guy at the end of the table, the signatory, would deal with, hopefully, and satisfy himself on behalf of the town that none of these are issues, I guess the way I would put it.
right.
Okay.
Some of the,
that's-
I'll just mention, we have one member in our group who has looked over contracts before.
Yeah,
He's not a lawyer, but he's looked over contracts for the town before, and he's basically okay
yeah,
with it. So, but if there are any concerns, then I won't answer those questions.
I
would
understand.
redirect, sure.
but it's a great program, so it's just, these are just ditzy things before you put your name to it. You wanna be sure you're,
Yeah, thank you for going through it. That's why I wanted to just bring it up before we were even approved.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
See if there were any
your
red flags.
committee does so many things for the town, it's incredible.
Well, we're,
But that
Getting
leads to
there.
asking you what you'd like to accomplish tonight with us. Do you want us to vote what?
no, what I wanted to do is find out, so if we're approved, sounds like hopefully this contract, we can work it out, because if we're not.
It's a
then-
standard form state contract. I've seen it in other
Okay.
locations.
If we're not approved, our committee is thinking about, and I just want to see if you'd be on board with a similar idea. We're thinking of following Natick's example, where basically it's doing the same kind of program, just without the $2,000 incentive that the CEC is providing. And we would look to join with other communities contiguous with ours that didn't satisfy the requirements to apply to this program. For example, Dover, Holliston,
So is that your fallback position
That's our
if you don't
fallback.
get approved? Okay.
if we don't get
Yeah,
approved.
Gotcha.
Plan C would be to wait until the fall and reapply at the end of September with Ashland and Framingham. And we
So
feel
the-
we'd have a stronger chance if we connected with them. Also, we would have to keep in mind too, waiting would mean their numbers, like all of their installations, would count toward our tier level.
Oh,
So the more,
There's some benefit to it.
definitely we would be able to get to like tier 5. There are only 5 tiers of pricing. So I just wanted to see how that sat with you.
I've been pushing solar for 6 years.
I know.
I support every one of those in series or together or all at the same time, or our own application, our application with other communities, all that works for me. As long as we get to the result of people having solar power on their roofs. However we get there, I'll follow your lead.
Okay, terrific.
Sounds good to me. Real good.
All right.
So do you need any
I don't
votes
need
about
any
this particular agreement right now?
I don't need any signatures right now, but we probably will within a week. That should be
So
coming
I'm
within
gonna give my
the-
notes to David, and you can eyeball
It
them,
would-
and I'm sure they're fine if it's standard.
Do you want to talk to Barbara about, town council about it, too?
I will verify it, but I didn't know if you wanted to vote tonight for me to authorize me to sign grants and applications as chief procurement officer on behalf of the board when it's prudent and in the case of a deadline or something.
Oh, absolutely, so move.
Second.
All in favor? These are no-brainers.
So,
One day we're gonna make you into a strong town administrator, but in
Yeah,
the meantime,
yeah.
anything that we can do
He's
to,
mealing.
give you
What
whatever
little
we
bit we can give him.
you're gonna get it
There's
there.
another monkey over there
so
on
if
his
you could-
back.
when you need the signature, contact us. Come in.
Fabulous. So I won't need to come here and have the vote. I can just
No.
bring it to you?
Right.
Fabulous.
He's the man.
Excellent. Love it. Great. All right, thank you.
Thank you for all
Thanks,
that
that's
you've been
great.
doing
Really
for the
appreciate
town.
it.
My pleasure. That's good. Yeah, we'll keep you updated on how it goes.
Excellent. Thanks, Jean.
Now, I see we have all these dignitaries from the library. I don't see the library on the agenda, but if,
The daffodils.
you're on the daffodil thing, okay, I was gonna see if we. All right.
Very supportive.
Well, by the time he reads through the proclamation, 10 minutes might go by. It's pretty,
Well,
Not that.
yeah, okay.
there are other people coming?
Yeah, there are some people out
Gladly.
there, and, yeah, they are shooting for 7:25.
Because I was looking down the list and I was thinking, oh my God, they're here for our minutes. I figured Jim Murphy was gonna, the lawyer,
Jim the Murphy, I like
going
that.
to go through our minutes and tell us how we could do them better.
I have opinions, I do have opinions.
There are 4 minutes that apparently I haven't read.
The dates are right there, so if we could take those aside.
So can I take out of this list the 18th,
Yep.
the 20th of December, the 17th of January, and the March 8th?
And we should take out the 21st unless you're comfortable on that, but you weren't at that meeting.
I'm comfortable voting
Okay.
Okay.
for that. But again, that's why I want to talk about remote participation, so that I can have Tom at these meetings, even though he may be in a hospital room.
Sounds like a great plan. All right, I move we accept the minutes of November 28th, 2012, December 6th, 2012, January 31st, 2013, February 7th, 2013, February 14th, 2013, and March 21st, 2013.
Second. Any discussions? Hearing none, all in favor? How about skipping ahead to
Yep.
consideration of approval of warrant number 39?
I move that we approve warrant 39 as submitted.
Oh, I'm sorry. I signed that too.
See, one day, to quote Martin Luther King, I have this vision that we put in Article 23, that you will sign these things.
And there's no way we can make it happen otherwise.
I went ahead and signed it just to get in the habit.
Well, that's evidence of your careful review.
And I think
that
you should.
alone.
I think we should change the form and have the warrant. Let's get
Reviewed
into the
and approved
practice.
by the-
Reviewed and approved by the town administrator. Have a signature on it before it comes to us, so that we know that at least somebody who knows what they're doing has thoroughly gone through it before we.
Yeah, because before I was doing it, and I had no clue what I was doing.
No, that's
No, that's good.
That will
And
be
I-
the plan.
Yeah, I think that's terrific that you're doing that, David, too, because you're bringing a fresh perspective to each thing. You're learning about where the money goes here. It's kind of important.
But don't lose heart, we'll get there
Okay.
to a strong town administrator. It just takes time. This community needs, it's like playing soccer. You have to run the ball down the field and keep kicking it down. Sooner or later you get down to
Right.
the goal. It's not easy. Move approval?
I
You already
moved
did?
it. Yep.
Second? All in favor?
Excellent. Great. It's great to see that signature.
Well, it seems like we've covered just about everything, but we're early for the proclamation by 10 minutes. So can I
So we
talk a
could
little bit
talk about my
about?
little thing, sure. What I wanted to set the stage for was, next week in our discussions, hopefully we'll consider, given this is new to me, what do we do with Article 23, if anything? So the question is, I see sort of 4 possibilities, and there may be more to consider, so it's food for thought, as I said. One is that we do nothing, and it just dies its ugly death, or we withdraw it or something. 2 is we decide that we still think it has legs, and we want to continue a process of maybe a little refinement, but also education, because it was defeated by, advisory did do some very careful due diligence, but the latest draft that reflected a number of the comments from the community didn't get to them until late in the day. I'm sure they didn't have an adequate time to look at it. And there were still other folks that, had issues with it. But do we want to still bring it to the voters at town meeting? I was looking at the Wicked Local online today, and they had something about the library event the other night, the trivia game. And they had some pictures of people having a ball. And I didn't recognize most of those people. So the point is that there's an awful lot of people in town, besides the crowd that was in the room here Saturday and Monday night, who we represent. Hundreds of people voted for you as a selectman. Hundreds of people voted for me as a selectman. Many I don't know. We represent them. So the question is, do we want to continue to bring forward what we think is in the best interest of the community to all of the community, or more of the community than what we had in the rooms here during the advisory public hearing? So that's possibility number 2.
I
wanna
voted for
food
you.
that. So I think
You're
you're.
trying to figure out who voted for you? I voted for you.
Thank you. Thank you, I appreciate it. Vote early, vote often,
Yeah,
Um,
that's 2 out of 4. What's
That's
the
2 out
other
of 4. Number 3 is whether there were suggestions of a task or a committee, or what I would more envision as a task force that goes and carries the ball further on our behalf and comes back to us with, here's what we think ought to happen. And then it's a question of how we figure out what the composition of the task force is. That's a possibility. And when we do the task force, and when we have the task force come back to us, okay? And the 4th possibility that I see is we do nothing, but we allow David to stretch his legs around the town here, and by the time a year from now, or the next town meeting, whenever that might be, if it's sooner than a year from now, he'll have had an opportunity to figure out the lay of the land, and also be able to help us figure out what we ought to do in the same vein as what we try to do with Article 23. So I see those as 4 possibilities. Hopefully we can let Tom know about those possibilities. You may have others, but I'd like to see us discuss those next week in more detail when
There's
Tom's
one
here.
other that people have talked to me about, and that is that there was a lot in that article, and so some have told me, why don't we just do a motion at town meeting on the treasure collector piece? And another group have come to me and said, forget the treasure collector piece, the rest of it is no-brainer, just do a motion on the rest of it. So there's the option of divide
Yes,
the
of
question
course, yeah.
into
2 pieces, yeah.
2 or more pieces and do it bite-sized. But our agreement with Tom was that we wouldn't get into
No, it's-
substantive discussions without a full board being here. So, let's make note of those 5. Let's hope Tom is watching here, so he's had the benefit of, hi. So he's had the benefit of hearing those,
Yes.
those 5 points.
Sounds like, that's all I want to do is put those on there, have this little brief discussion so that we know what to look forward to.
And I had, my little brief item was that the general laws now provide for remote participation in meetings. We have a chairman who is ill and apparently going through a stretch where things get worse before they get better. And because it's hard for him, it would behoove us to find a way to allow him to participate. He is a selectman of the town. He is elected by the people. He's entitled to be heard. The laws provide for remote participation. I brought this up before, but for 4 years I've been asking for us to get a cloverleaf phone here for $25. I haven't been able to get it. But if we're able to have a phone here, we could adopt remote participation. It's just a vote of the Board of Selectmen. Of course, I'd want to throw it out, let other boards and committees have a chance to consider it for themselves. But we can limit it to the Board of Selectmen for the time being. We have a particular situation with a sick individual who very much wants to participate.
I would almost argue, Paul, that this discussion could fall under the topics not reasonably anticipated by the chair, because we learned today that Tom couldn't be here because medicine and treatment that he was taking. So that putting it under that might allow us to take action sooner than later, and I just soon see us take action sooner than later.
What action do you want to take?
Move to do exactly what you're describing. I don't know what steps there are, but if we could get the ball rolling on this remote participation for the Board of Selectmen only, I don't know what needs to be done, but
Well, I'd like to suggest the following. First, we need to spend the $25 for a phone and see that it can be done, because there has to be wires and a way to connect it.
We did put the phone line in, so all we need is the phone.
Okay, but somebody actually has to go to a store and spend $25 to buy the equipment. Number 2, I would like to send a memo to all the town boards and committees to see if there is anybody else out there who has similar needs and similar interest. Because I don't want to be selfish about it, that just us should be able to do this because we have a particular situation. There could be other boards that have a member who is physically.
A compelling reason to request permission to allow remote participation.
Yes, we have that reason, but there may be others. So
Right.
could you send a memo to all the boards and committees and ask for their reaction? And then maybe put it on for the next meeting, so if there's somebody who really objects and doesn't want Tom to participate and remotely, let him be heard, so we can thrash it out and give people a chance to be heard, and then try and tee this up for a decision at our next meeting.
Okay.
Okay?
great,
So,
sounds like.
so move for that plan.
I second it,
All in favor?
great.
All right.
We've been unanimous tonight.
I do apologize that we don't have our third member here. He is here with us in spirit. Is it close enough to the starting time that we can start? Or are more planning to attend? We can start? All right, this agenda item is our last agenda item. It's a discussion of a proclamation for the Daffodil Trail Committee. Should I read the proclamation, or does somebody want to make a
Few comments
presentation
about
before I read it, or how do you want to proceed?
what does the Daffodil Trail Committee do besides what's described in the proclamation? How about giving us a overview?
We have representatives.
Over here at the waterboarding seat.
Here we go. Got a full house, yeah.
Well, we're here to thank daffodils because it's almost spring, and we have in the room representatives from the Daffodil Trail Committee, the Sherborn Garden Club, the Bogastow Garden Club, and library trustees. As Paul will read in the proclamation, the Daffodil Trail was started 30 years ago and celebrated its 25th anniversary 5 years ago. There was quite a celebration. And now they are disbanding their efforts, and because the Daffodil Trail began on the property of the Sherborn Library, we decided that we would bring together the historic members of the committees that, got this started. It's a beautiful thing in Sherborn, so over to you, Paul.
All right. Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Town of Sherborn, a proclamation. Whereas the Sherborn Daffodil Trail was established in 1982 under the sponsorship of the trustees and friends of the library. And whereas the Daffodil Trail was planted to honor the lives and service of Richard and Mary B. Saltonstall, who dedicated the Sherborn Library to the town in 1971. And whereas the beginnings of the Daffodil Trail in Sherborn was planted on the library grounds with 500 bulbs, and a goal established in 1982 to plant 10,000 bulbs a year, so that by 1988, 100,000 bulbs were planted by the inspiration of Wordsworth's poem. And whereas the Daffodil Trail Committee was the recipient of a gift of 12 heirloom bulbs that were product of those that had been brought to America by our early settlers, and planted these at the library. And whereas the Bogastow and Sherborn Garden Clubs have jointly managed the Sherborn Trail annual bulb sale and annual appeal since 1987. Whereas the Daffodil Trail Committee has provided funds for town beautification and implementation of landscape projects throughout the town, while encouraging residents to participate in trail plantings along the borders of their properties to link to the growth of April gold. And whereas in 1992, the Daffodil Trail Committee established a landscape endowment for the library with a $5,000 principal gift, which by 2013 has grown to $46,000. And whereas in 2013, the Daffodil Trail has fulfilled its mission and concludes its 30-year history with a gift to the library and a perpetual example upon the community of a living memorial continuous as the stars that shine. Now, therefore, we, the selectmen of the town of Sherborn, on behalf of all its citizens, extend their appreciation and gratitude to the Sherborn Daffodil Trail Committee for its years of service to the library, the town landscape, and the quality of life of residents. In witness thereof, we have caused the seal of the town to be affixed to this proclamation on this 20th day of March in the year 2013. Do you move to adopt this?
I so moved. Well done.
Sign it. Could the Daffodil Trail group come up and receive their proclamation? We have to give it to someone.
Wow, that's a beautiful thing.
To Margot.
Thank you so much. We will.
Could you all, for the camera and for the residents of the town, tell us who you are? Please just say your name for the cameras.
Kimberly Chester.
Shelley Cantor.
The cameras, right there.
Margot Kowicki, Eileen Hope, Sally Brody, Penny Nichols,
Kathy Bernard.
Elaine Fisk, Joan Dunn, Ellen Cuddy, Martha Honan.
Oh, good.
Thank you. Does the library want to say some words in appreciation for this, or? We did. We did,
You did.
okay.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to be heard on this subject? Right.
That's terrific. That's terrific.
Well, then, thank you all. Our agenda is complete.
Yeah. I move.
Is there a move to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
I second. Thank you for all that you've done for this community. All in favor?
Good job, Paul. Well
We're
done.
adjourned.
Well done. Well done.